Shabbat shalom, everyone. I might have mentioned to you before, I'm not a big connoisseur of sports. That doesn't mean I'm totally oblivious to what's going on. I tend to hear things through the grapevine. People update me on who's winning what. But lately, I feel like I got my head out of the game for just a minute, pun intended. And when I checked back into sports land, just for a moment, I was hit with quite a whopper. Friends, can somebody tell me what's going on with Bill Belichick? If you don't know what I'm referring to, you're probably better off. And I'm actually kind of sad that I have to be the one to tell you this. But if you didn't already know, Bill Belichick, the highly successful American football coach, best known for leading the New England Patriots to 6 Super Bowl titles as their head coach. Bill Belichick, who is 73 years old and widely regarded as one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. Bill Belichick is now apparently dating a 24-year-old model and former cheerleader named Jordan Hodson. Mazel tov? Now, this is one of those times that I wish I had a picture to show you, because I think if you saw it, things would make a lot more sense. These two don't really look like a romantic couple. They look like if a very attractive woman and her grandfather posed for an awkward picture together, that's what it would look like. It's very odd. And I'm really not one to judge, but just based on the optics of this situation, I highly doubt she's into Bill's stunning youthful charm. I don't think her intellect is his first priority. Apparently, these two lovebirds met when Jordan Hodson was just 20 years old. Supposedly, they met on a flight from Boston to Florida, where Belichick signed a copy of her book on the plane, and the rest, as they say, is awkward football history. Now, we see this all the time. If this were just the normal, run-of-the-mill age gap between celebrities and their partners, it probably would not have been so newsworthy. But their relationship has garnered now national and international attention because of Hodson's apparently controlling behavior of Belichick. For instance, Hodson has been described as the gatekeeper to Belichick, with reports indicating she now plays a very significant role in managing his public engagements and commercial opportunities. It was recently discovered that she has demanded to be copied on every email that he receives. And during an interview in April with Belichick on CBS, Hodson interrupted the reporter when he casually asked Bill, "Where did you two meet?" "We are not talking about this," Hodson yelled off camera. Yikes, Bill. What's also weird about this relationship is that if you've ever watched Bill Belichick speak prior to all of this, he is incredibly gruff and short with his words. He always seems to have this scowl on his face, like he was always irritated with something. But now, if you look at the photos that Jordan Hodson posts of the two of them, he's like a completely different person. She makes him pose for these planned photos that she uploads to social media, including of one of her dressed like a mermaid, complete with tail, on the beach. And he is wearing a fisherman's outfit, and he's mimicking reeling her in with a big dumb smile on his face. Friends, I've got to say, it is really a hard thing to watch an American football icon emasculated in such a sad way. I mean, this guy has a whole fist full of Super Bowl rings, and yet she won't let him even read his own emails? You might be asking yourself, Rabbi, come on. What what does Bill Belichick have to do with our Torah portion for this week? I'm so glad you asked. Parshat Naso is the longest Torah portion in all the 5 books. Just ask Mike Winokur. It covers a lot of different topics. But the one that correlates to the Haftorah, which Phil Landis so beautifully read, is the idea of the Nazir, or the Nazarite. This parsha explains that an ancient Israelite could make an additional vow to refrain from wine, cutting their hair, and from becoming impure. And he would be held to a higher calling in the eyes of God. This person, like I mentioned, was called a Nazir or a Nazarite. In our Haftorah, we read from the book of Judges, and we read about this angelic announcement of Shimshon, Samson. And we read about how his parents react to the news of his upcoming birth. The angels tell the couple that this man who will be born will be raised as a Nazir, a Nazarite, and therefore he can't drink any wine, he can't cut his hair. And then later in the story, much later in the Tanakh, we find out that the key to Samson's enormous strength is his long, beautiful hair. And we're told that if he cuts it, he will lose all of his super muscle power. Now, after his angelic announcement is made, that's kind of where our Haftorah ends. But this story from the Tanakh is so important. I want to tell you what happens afterwards. Samson is raised, and he fights against the police team, the Philistines. Oftentimes, he's so amazing he can do this all by himself. He performs these great feats of strength. He kills a lion with his bare hands. He uses the jawbone of a donkey, and the Tanakh says he slaughters 1,000 men. Later, he carries off the gates of the city. However, Samson's downfall came through his relationship with a woman named Delilah, who is bribed by the Philistines to discover the secret of his great strength. And after several failed attempts, she finally coaxes the truth from him, and while he sleeps, Samson's hair is cut and he loses his strength. Afterwards in the story, we're told the Philistines capture him, and they blind him, and they imprison him. And in the final act of the story, Samson prays to God for strength one last time while being displayed in the Philistine temple, and he pushes over the main pillars of the temple, collapsing the building and killing himself along with thousands of Philistines, delivering a final blow to Israel's enemies. Now, if you analyze this story from a literary perspective, Samson is a clear example of what we call the tragic hero. His hair symbolized his sacred vow to God, and his strength was a divine gift meant for protection of the people Israel. But that strength became entangled in personal indulgence. He was seduced by Delilah, who coaxed from him the secret of his strength, and ultimately she betrayed him to his enemies. He lost everything: his power, his sight, and his freedom. When we read about these characters through the context of a modern lens, it's hard not to find similarities to the situation playing out with Bill Belichick right now. Hodson's influence over him, a man once famed for his singular focus and discipline, she may be leading him astray from the very foundation that made him great. Now let me be clear. I am not here to judge the morality of private relationships, but as Jews, we are always called to extract ethical and spiritual insight from the world around us. And I think the parallel here is striking. Samson was supposed to be a protector of Israel, but in the end, he couldn't even protect himself. He couldn't see the danger in front of him because it came in the form of affection, and let's face it, lust. He gave loyalty to someone who did not have his best interests at heart, or at least someone whose influence ultimately led to his undoing. Likewise, Belichick, a man who built a football dynasty through discipline, discretion, and control, now seems to be distracted by someone with far less experience, someone who may not fully understand or respect the weight of his responsibility. So is she his Delilah? That's not up to us to decide. But we should ask ourselves, who or what in our own lives plays the role of Delilah? I think Delilah is not just a literal person or character. I think she is much more of a symbol. Delilah is the Tanakh symbol of ego unchecked, the symbol of seduction, of vulnerability masquerading as beauty or strength. Delilah represents the downfall of the strong man, showing us that even someone like Shimshon could fall. And if that's the case, the Tanakh warns us, so too can any of us. So friends, what can Judaism teach us here? I think it teaches us that strength must be tempered alongside humility, that love must be guided by wisdom, and that influence, whether in ancient Israel or modern-day America, must be earned and examined. When we ignore the voices of our tradition, of our conscience, we risk trading our divine gifts for temporary pleasure or misguided loyalty. Samson's last act, as we know, was that of redemption. He prayed to God for strength, not to serve himself, but rather to deliver Israel. And in that moment, he finally realigned his power with his purpose. Perhaps, dear friends, this too is our task, to take stock of our own gifts, to question the voices and the people that we allowed to shape our decision-making, and to pray for the wisdom to use our strength, not to elevate our own ego, but to serve a greater calling. As for Mr. Belichick, hopefully he too can learn from Samson. If your new girlfriend starts rewriting your playbook and interrupting your interviews, it might be time to cut your losses before she cuts your hair. Shabbat Shalom.